Hi, everyone. Welcome back. You are watching the Zenith Glow Astrology YouTube channel. My name is Christina, and I am an astrologer. In today's video, we are going to talk about the upcoming Cancer new moon. We're going to take a look at a chart for the new moon and talk about some of the specific aspects for those of you that are interested in all the little nitty-gritty details. And then we're going to break things down in a more symbolic, metaphorical way to look at what all of those aspects translate into when we're looking at our actual life experience and how these energies impact us on a day-to-day level or like a lived experience kind of level. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you all that I am still running a special through the end of June. If you use the code June25 when you book an appointment with me, you can get 25% off of your reading. So I will go ahead and post a link for that below. Thank you so much for letting me get that out of the way. All right, so let's talk about this new moon in Cancer. First and foremost, the new moon will be on June 25th. It's going to be exact at 6:31 a.m. Eastern Time, and it will be occurring at 4 degrees 7 minutes of Cancer. Now, there are some prominent aspects going along with this new moon, but just as a reminder, whenever we have a new moon, we have a new beginning, right? Because we're starting a new lunar phase. And in particular, this new moon is extra new because it's our first new moon, our first lunar cycle that is starting after we've entered a new season, right? We just had the summer solstice up here in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, you just had the winter solstice. So we've just changed seasons, and this is the first new moon of the season. Okay, so it's new on top of new. And we've had a lot going on lately. We've had a lot going on lately, especially the last week or so. This is happening astrologically, but also just in terms of energy and things that are going on out in the cosmos. So we had Jupiter move into Cancer. We recently, 2 weeks ago, we also had a full moon in Sagittarius that coincided with that event. And then we just had the summer solstice, right? And all of those events are spike points of energy that we experience, right? There's a heightened sense of energy that comes through those astrological events. On top of that, we have been having solar flares, which has been spiking the Schumann resonance. And whenever we have those types of things, it also brings in a lot of consciousness codes. We've all been experiencing these shifts in consciousness, essentially. There's downloads that are coming through to us, there's light codes that are filtering down through the cosmos that we are receiving. All of that is really good, especially in the long run, right? Because we want to expand our consciousness. We want to keep ascending on this journey that we are partaking in. But when it comes to like the lived human 3D experience of that, we have a lot of old energy, old patterns that are falling away. And it manifests for each of us differently, but when it does manifest, there's usually a level of intensity that accompanies it. So, if you've been feeling a lot of really intense energy lately, just know that that might be why. There's a lot going on right now. Like stuff is being piled on, thing after thing after thing. And it can be exhausting. So just please do take care of yourself, whatever you need. If you need physical rest, if you need emotional nurturing, or whatever it is that you need for self-care, just make sure that you give that to yourself, because this stuff can be really fraying for the nerves, and it can just be a lot to take on. And also make sure that you are listening to your emotional body, because a lot of what we are going through right now is consciousness shift that's manifesting through emotional release. So again, it's all good stuff. It's leading us to good places, but the process of getting there can be a little bit challenging. So just make sure that you do you and that you take care of yourself. Okay, so real quick, we're going to pull up a chart and we are going to look at what's happening with this new moon in Cancer on June 25th. So again, ignore the houses. They don't matter in this chart. We are only looking at the signs, the planets, and their relationship to each other. So we have the new moon, which is the sun and the moon conjunct at 4 degrees 7 minutes, 4 degrees 8 minutes. I mean, it's really splitting hairs, isn't it? In the sign of Cancer. At the same time, Jupiter recently went into the sign of Cancer. And so Jupiter is at 3 degrees of Cancer. So it is also conjunct with the new moon. So that is our first special thing that's going on with this new moon. At the same time as that, we have the asteroid Mary Magdalena at 8 degrees of Cancer. So she is also conjunct with the new moon. So that is some prominent energy coming through. That's a quadruple conjunction if you're counting Jupiter, the sun, the moon, and asteroid Mary Magdalena all together. Okay, and then that configuration is making aspects to other planets in the zodiac. So let's just go through some of these things. And then again, we're going to talk about what does this mean? Like, what does this translate to in your lived experience? So, first of all, we have Mercury at 28 degrees of Cancer, and it is squaring Chiron in Aries. Okay, so that's a challenging aspect that we are feeling. Mercury is our thinking and our communication, and Chiron is the wounded healer. All right. Chiron works with alchemy and transmutation of the wound. Then we have 2 minor grand trines, okay? One of them does involve Mercury. So we have a minor grand trine with Mercury trine. It's actually in an out of sign trine with Neptune and Saturn in Aries. And then we have Uranus at the apex of that, Uranus and Taurus. By the way, just want to mention that Uranus being at the 29th degree of Taurus is another thing just in and of itself that is intense energy. And if you've been noticing that there's things going on around the Earth right now, like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and things like that, that can be a manifestation of this energy because Taurus is our earthiest sign, and Uranus causes sudden disruptions and chaos and things like that. And with it being at the 29th degree, that is the intense anaretic degree as it prepares to cross over into the sign of Gemini next month, which we will be talking about. Oh, we will be talking about it. I have a lot to say about that one. But we're focusing on the new moon right now. So the other minor grand trine that we have going on is we have, once again, Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. It is in and out of sign trine with Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius, and then each of those is sextile once again to Neptune and Saturn, which are conjunct in the early degrees of Aries. Once again, guys, if this stuff just makes your eyes glaze over, don't worry about it. I'm sharing it for those folks who like to hear all the little nitty gritty details. Give me just a few minutes and we're going to get into what does all this mean. So we also have Venus in Taurus, which is a strong placement for her because she rules the sign of Taurus, and she is making an aspect to the nodal aspect, an aspect to the nodal aspect, an aspect to the nodal axis. There it is. I got it. Take 2. So we have the north node at 21 degrees of Pisces, the south node at 21 degrees of Virgo. Venus is trine the south node and sextile the north node, okay? And then oh, yeah, there's more. I wrote all these things down. I would say the highlight of all of this, let me just flip through my notes here. The highlight of all of these aspects for me, the thing that stood out to me that is special about this, you might notice when you look at this chart, hey, there's like these green dotted lines and they make like this big X shape and they look really weird. That is actually two Yod aspect patterns happening simultaneously during this new moon. Okay, so the first one, we have the new moon itself. Okay, so all those clustered planets overlapping each other at the early degrees of Cancer are sextile with Mars at 4 degrees of Virgo. And then together, those two sides form a point to Pluto in Aquarius, okay, which is two inconjunct aspects, okay? This creates that yod, that finger of God that we've talked about in past updates. Other astrological transits happened recently. I can't remember which one it was. But the yod is a really, really intense, challenging aspect pattern, but it is also probably the most spiritual aspect pattern that you can have. So that in and of itself is pretty big news. And having Pluto at the peak of that, wherever the point is, wherever the finger is pointing to, that planet is highly significant, okay? But we have two of those. And the other one, this is interesting, at least from my nerdy astrological perspective. The other one, we have Pluto, and it is sextile with that Neptune Saturn conjunction in Aries. And then those 2 points form in conjunctions to Mars in Virgo. So it's kind of like, I don't know, this isn't like an official astrological term, but it's sort of like reciprocated yods happening here because we have, Pluto involved in the configuration of one yod and it's pointing at Mars. And then we have Mars involved in the configuration of the other yod and it's pointing at Pluto. Why is this important? We're going to talk about it. I'm going to get rid of this chart because that's pretty much all the hoopla I wanted to discuss for the specifics. So we'll just go ahead and turn that off. And hello and welcome. How are you doing? How are you guys doing? How you doing with all these energies? They're pretty intense, aren't they? I've been feeling it, you guys. I've been feeling it. It's not just like physically hot where I am. It's very hot. I have like a crazy suntan I haven't gotten burned, but I've been getting a lot of sun. I take my dogs out a lot. I'm getting a lot of sun. I'm getting a lot of heat. It's good. I'm sure my vitamin D levels are like, yeah, the best they've ever been. But in terms of heat intensity, energies coming through the cosmos, astrological alignments, shifts in consciousness, things going on in the 3D, yeah, definitely feeling the heat. I've got that song in my head. The heat is on. It's that Kenny Loggins. Anyway. So this new moon in Cancer it's kind of got like a dual purpose going on, okay? So we've had all this stuff that just happened, right? We just had, full moon, Jupiter in Cancer, the solstice, the solar activations, the solar flares and stuff going on. Those are all really intense things. But then on top of that, it's just been a lot. It's just been a lot. So now we've got this new moon in Cancer, and it's bringing in some new shifts in consciousness as well, but it's also giving us kind of like a nice little healing balm to go over all those freshly picked at wounds that we've sort of been dealing with. Not that they're wounds, but it's just really, really intense energy, right? And some of us might be feeling like kind of exhausted, kind of fatigued. So part of what this new moon is bringing in, I'm just going to flip my notes here. It's bringing in an opportunity for transmutation of any lower, denser energies. It's bringing in an opportunity for integration of the new, higher energies. Okay, so it's kind of like it's a new beginning, right? Because new moons are always new beginnings. But it's also kind of like a little pause that we get to take. We kind of get like a little break from everything, right? And it's not so much a break like nothing's happening because obviously I just read off all of these alignments and there's a lot that's going on simultaneously. But it's like we're given an opportunity to kind of work with the shifts that have been happening. It's sort of like almost like we've been caught up in like a tidal wave of energy, and we're all like kind of soaked with those energies. And now, the tidal wave is sort of dissipating, and we're left like, okay, wait a minute. Like, where's my sandals? Okay, there's my sandals. Let me put my sandals back on. Where's my sunglasses? Okay, there they are. Let's put those there. We're kind of like putting things where they belong, and we're kind of assimilating everything, and we're integrating the energies. And so, for anything that is still kind of weighing us down or kind of bringing our energy into a lower frequency, we're given the opportunity to transmute that into a higher energy. Okay. And then at the same time, for all of the higher energies that we've been experiencing, we're being given an opportunity to kind of ground and to kind of chill out a little bit. And because we're talking about Cancer, right? Cancer's the main thing. I talked about all these different planets and aspects that are happening right now, but Cancer is the main star of the show here. This is relating to our emotional selves and our inner world, right? Cancer's all about the inner reality. And it's also very much about our emotional sensitivity, and it will call our attention to the need for emotional boundaries. Okay, that's one of the basic archetypes of Cancer. And having Jupiter in Cancer, again, Jupiter's the magnifier, right? So it's going to expand things to draw our attention to those things. Having Jupiter there is going to highlight for us, where are we needing to set better emotional boundaries with other people? Where are we feeling extra sensitive and vulnerable, and maybe like our emotions are not totally being honored by other people? Or maybe we just have not stepped up and set the boundaries that we need for proper self care. Okay, so those things are coming up, but remember, Jupiter is also the greater benefic. It provides us with opportunities for growth and expansion. So, whatever happens, even though things like energetic boundaries and sensitivity and emotion and vulnerability can be like literally like touchy subjects, right? Um, it's still a really beautiful thing that's happening because it's an opportunity to shift the way that we go about working with this kind of stuff, the way we go about dealing with our relationships and our emotions. And it's putting us in a space where we can be in a more consistent frame of energy, if that makes sense. So, if we're talking about we're wanting to raise our frequency and we're wanting to embody more light, we literally are, right? We're receiving all this light from the sun, all of these consciousness expanding codes and things like that. If we want to hold that light, and we need to maintain a higher frequency and not be brought down into these lower old patterns that aren't really serving us. So Jupiter's offering us an opportunity to finally put those things to bed, to finally put those things to rest, okay? And what's really beautiful about this alignment is having Mary Magdalena, the asteroid, involved in that quadruple conjunction configuration within the new moon. Because Mary Magdalena brings in this beautiful feminine quality of the Christ consciousness energy. Okay. So she is bringing in a new emotional beginning, and there is an opportunity for really deep, lasting inner peace. Okay. So that is the beautiful gift that's on offer. And I do want to say, all the new moon rules or whatever you want to call them still apply to this new moon in Cancer. Okay. It's a new beginning, it's a great time for manifestation. I highly recommend, because we've got Jupiter involved and because it's a new moon, that's very auspicious. There's potential for, buku abundance manifestation through this new moon. I highly recommend you take a look at where this point of Cancer is at in your chart, which house it lies within your chart, because you have an opportunity to manifest something within that area of your life, okay? And if that's something you're not sure about and you don't know how to read your chart and all that, I mean, you can look stuff up online, but I would also be happy to look at your chart for you or with you and to go over it and talk about, okay, this is the area of your life that it's going to be impacting. This is what you could potentially seed into that new area. And keep in mind, too, as well, that this new moon energy, we're talking about a window of energy, right? So it becomes exact on June 25th, but you're going to feel that energy start to come in a couple days beforehand and a few days after. So you've got a little bit of time to work with this and to really set intentions and to bring your conscious focus to what you want to manifest. Okay, so new moons, new beginnings, manifestations, woohoo, making wishes, those types of things. It's all relevant, okay? But going back to, yeah, inner alchemy, that's something that's going on right now. We are getting deep in touch with our feelings, with our inner reality, our inner world, okay? So, through the Cancer component of things, that's going to be emotions. That's going to be the way we emotionally relate to others and what we notice is going on within those relations, right? What is manifesting within us as we relate to other people. And why are those things happening? Is it a result of boundaries or a lack of boundaries that we're setting? Are we really tending to our energetic integrity? Meaning that, if you go out in the world and you interact with people, or if you're receiving all these like wild consciousness downloads and stuff, and you're like all over the place, your nervous system is all over the place, are you taking the time to consciously shield yourself, transmute your energy, ground yourself, meditate, sleep, rest, drink water? You know what I mean? Like tend to yourself and check in with your energetic baseline. Because again, this is an opportunity to one, become more conscious of those levels within yourself and where do you feel most at peace in yourself. And then two, to cultivate a new practice or just to bring more conscious awareness and action to those components of your existence, to those components of your reality, so that you can cultivate a more steady baseline, right? So instead of being like pulled all over the place with the shifting tides, you can kind of set your own foundation within yourself. So no matter what happens, you have a base to work from. You have a rootedness within yourself that gives you a sense of peace, regardless of what's going on in your outer world. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So, part of this energy that we're dealing with right now that's coming in, it's not even that we're dealing with it, it's an opportunity that we're being given to work with. Part of it has to do with, again, like I was saying, like your energetic hygiene, your spiritual hygiene, you could say, and how you're feeling emotionally. The other part of it is physical, right? We've got some planets going on. We've got Uranus in Taurus, we've got Venus in Taurus. Venus is aspecting the nodes. We've got Mars at 4 degrees of Virgo. All those planets are pinging off of the other planets, right? So there's things that are happening right now that are coming through in a very physical way. We can look into the outer world, and I'm not going to really talk about this stuff because it's not my forte, but there's obviously a lot going on out on the world stage, out in the social scene, out in, we look at politics and society and that type of stuff. Okay. There's a lot going on out there, right? Part of that is related to money. Part of that is related to our physical security and our sense of safety and maybe scarcity or maybe abundance or whatever you're experiencing. So those themes are also coming into this new moon, okay? And once again, it's an opportunity, Jupiter, to look at these things and to see, what do I need to shift? Because again, we just got this little wave, not little, it was a big wave of energy coming through these previous alignments from the past week. And now we need to calibrate. We need to recalibrate so that we are in alignment with the higher frequencies that are coming in, with this higher timeline that we are living now. Okay. We need to drop the old habits, the old patterns, the things that are no longer serving us so that we can really embrace all of the blessings that are on offer to us, okay? But it's a process, right? We have to go through this process and it takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight, especially because we live in a dense 3D-ish reality. You know what I mean? In other words, we still experience time. It still takes time for things to manifest in the physical. So, we are being given an opportunity to really recalibrate our energetic frequency so that we can manifest what we want on a physical level, which, that can be relationships and that can be the things we own, that can be our home, that can be our finances and our resources, whatever gives us a sense of security and groundedness within this reality. We're given an opportunity now to make some changes so that we can get into the alignment and the reality that we want to be living, that is most in alignment with our highest good and our sense of empowerment and our spiritual purpose. Okay. So this is where Mars and Pluto where they come into the mix. So how do I talk about Mars and Pluto? I wanted to talk real quick. Just a reminder, okay? So Pluto, we know this if you've looked into evolutionary astrology, if you've heard Bean Talk before, you know that Pluto pertains to the evolutionary desires of our soul. And that is kind of like an unconscious impulse from our human perspective, right? Because our soul is sort of something that operates at a level beyond our consciousness, okay? On the flip side, Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. And so Mars is like the conscious expression that we enact as human beings that will work on behalf of whatever those evolutionary impulses of the soul are, which are represented through Pluto. Okay? Are you still with me? All right. So there's another way to look at this, though, because every planet in astrology has a range of expressions, a range of potentials that it can express. Okay. And, for our purposes, we're always looking for the highest expression that we can, right? We're always aiming as high as we can go. It's that cliche quote that if you aim for the aim really high, you can still land amongst the stars. What was that quote? Shoot for the moon, you'll still land among the stars. I don't know. I feel like I've seen at least 4 different people use that as their quote in their senior yearbook. Anyway, it's a good quote. It's a good quote. It's a little overused, but it's a good one. And you get the idea, right? We can still aim high. We have high goals for our ascension, right? For our consciousness expansion. So when we look at the expressions of Pluto and Mars in astrology, we can look at Pluto in a different way. Okay, so first of all, Pluto is often very feared. And the wonderful astrologer Liz Green actually argued that we don't really understand Pluto. Okay, which is interesting because I work a lot with Pluto with the specific type of astrology that I practice. But I think she's right. All 3 of those outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, they are bringing us beyond the known boundaries of consciousness and they are shifting us into expanded awareness, okay? In different ways. They have different modes, different methods in which they work. So we kind of understand Uranus and we kind of understand Neptune, even though they are still kind of tricky to work with. Pluto, as we understand it, has just sort of been like this scary planet for us because what we have been noticing are Pluto's effects on us. And Pluto's effects are the most intense out of every planet in our zodiac, okay? It is absolutely, unequivocally the most challenging, deep, profound, scary, intense planet that we deal with. Pluto is the planet of rebirth. It is the planet of transformation. So yes, it will take you to your edge and it might even take you a little bit beyond it. And it's terrifying and it's very, 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 very difficult to work with. And so people become very afraid of Pluto. And they know, okay, Pluto's transforming me, and I guess that's good, but this sucks because it's hard, it hurts, it's pain. Pluto is pain. It's literally transformation through pain. That's how astrologers have described Pluto up until now. But I was doing some meditating on Pluto because I was thinking about what Liz Green said, and yeah, we don't fully understand it, right? We can't fully understand it. We're just not at that level of awareness in the evolution of humanity's consciousness, right? To fully get Pluto. Okay, we're still kind of undergoing its lessons and discovering what it's really all about. And I just thought, Pluto absolutely has this energy of wanting to shift us into our highest possible expression, right? It has a higher expression. If Pluto represents the soul, I mean, how can that be such a deep, dark, scary thing, right? It's our soul. I think it's only scary when we're talking from the ego level of experience, because when we experience ego death, which is something that all three of the outer planets facilitate in us, it's really traumatic and it can be really difficult. But so what Pluto ultimately wants in its higher expression. This is what I'm coming to discover. I'm not saying I have it all figured out, not by any means. It's still a process of discovery for me as well as anyone else. But I think that Pluto really helps us to catch a glimpse of what is possible within higher concepts of reality. When we're talking about, let's just call it the spiritual realm. Let's talk about I don't know. I had someone recently bring up to me the idea of Plato's theory of forms. Okay. And I started looking into this because I couldn't remember it from my early college philosophy classes. And I thought, that's actually pretty good. That's pretty good because Plato had this idea that there's some realm of existence of reality that's, let's call it higher for the purpose of our linear minds. And in that higher realm, there exists forms, and they are in a state of perfection. They are the thing, the form, right? Um, what it is meant to be in its absolute exquisite form of perfection. And then as those things step down through dimensions, through density, through reality, they become a little bit more convoluted. They become a little bit more distorted from the original. Okay. Um, it's kind of like, what is that? It's like it's like taking a picture of something, right? Like you have the thing that you experience in reality. And then, so the thing is the original form. And then the step away from that is you observing it with your human eyes. And then you can also take a picture of it. And then the picture becomes another step away from the actual thing. And every time you step away from it, it becomes a little bit more distorted. It's not quite the essence of the original thing. Where am I going with all this? I know this is getting really deep and intense. Hey, I haven't done a deep and intense talk in a while, so, I'm due for one. Um, what I'm trying to get at here is that Pluto offers us a glimpse into what is possible when it comes to the authentic, essential form, the perfection, the spiritual, most divine, beautiful, loving, exquisite thing, right? It shows us what's possible. And it's our soul, right? It's pure. It's pure. It wants us to get in touch with the pure essence of our soul. We could say it that way, okay? It's like a tabula rasa, right? There's no like distortion layered on top of it. There's nothing that's been convoluted or layered on. It's just the pure essential thing. So Pluto shows us what's possible, and it does that by highlighting for us what the convolutions are, what the distortions are, right? This is the shadow aspect of Pluto. This is where it shows us like, hey, you are pretty far away from expressing your pure essence because you've got all this other crap smeared on top of your tabula rasa, which is no longer a tabula rasa because which means blank slate, by the way. So it kind of shows us what needs to be transformed so that we can be rebirthed and brought into a higher expression. It's constantly lifting us up, but it doesn't always feel like that because we sort of have to go down before we can go up with Pluto. Okay. Now, Mars is that's all very spiritual, right? Pluto, soul, spirit, realms, forms, all that stuff is very spiritual. Mars is like the physical 3D stepped down version, the lower octave of Pluto, right? But Mars has a higher expression as well. So in normal astrology, we say, well, Mars is a masculine principle and it represents our ambition and our desire. It can be our sex drive and our physicality, our vitality, and it's connected to our ego, right? But Mars has a higher expression as well. When Mars moves into its higher expression, it actually helps us to ground into the physical while also partly shedding some of the ego, enough of the ego so that we can channel in the higher consciousness of Pluto, right? Because they're connected. The two of them are connected. They're, higher and lower octaves of each other. So it's like, if you think about like the chakras, it's sort of like Mars anchors us into the 3D reality through our lower chakras, but it also opens us up. This is in its highest expression. Again, this is Mars's highest expression. It also opens us up to receive through the higher chakras via Pluto. Okay, that kind of phoenix being reborn. So when we act out the highest expression of Mars, we can actually get in touch with our deepest sense of personal, emotional, physical fulfillment on Earth in this reality as a human being, as the human avatar, the human incarnation of our soul, right? That's kind of like Pluto's the soul, Mars is like the physical representation of that soul, okay? The ego version of it. And in the higher expression, the ego is not like running rampant and out of control. It's actually opening to the wisdom of the higher expression, the soul. It's seeing some of those higher forms that Pluto's like, hey, this is the original form. This is what you could be. This is what you could embody. This is what you should aspire to. And Mars says, okay, yeah, I have to be grounded in the physical, right, through these lower chakras, but I can still open up and receive this higher perception and try to ground that into my reality. And then Mars can actually hold space for the feminine side of our reality and find greater balance. And then through that balance, we can actually be creators, right? Because we're here to create. We're here to manifest. We are here to co-create as human beings, okay? And I know that was a whole lot of stuff. This is what's been going on with my brain lately as a result of all of these activations and things that are happening. But I wanted to bring it up because it's actually a big configuration going on with this new moon, with the two different yods that we have going on. And if you remember, this year, and actually starting late in 2024, we had the Pluto-Mars oppositions going on. So this is connected to that, right? The Pluto-Mars oppositions were sort of getting us in touch with our spiritual purpose, right? And helping us to spiritualize the ego, which is kind of what I'm talking about right now. So having two yod configurations during this new moon, it is a new chapter is beginning. There is an initiation process at work through this new moon as a result of all the stuff that we just went through, the new chapters that have just opened for us, this new timeline that we are in. And we are being given an opportunity to spiritualize the expressions of these two planets through these aspect patterns, the yods, the fingers, fingers of God, right? So that's what's happening, okay? There's a deep transformation occurring, and it's happening within these two expressions, these two planets. We are having the ability to, let me put this into language that's a little bit less convoluted, a little bit less complicated. Let's just put it this way. During this new moon, we are going to have highlighted for us all the ways that our minds, our thought patterns, our old ways of doing and being and thinking, particularly thinking, okay? And remember, Mercury square Chiron at the time of this new moon. We're having those thought patterns highlighted for us, and they're very evasive. They are very tricky thought patterns, right? Because that's kind of the essence of the mind. It sort of operates almost beyond our consciousness, just under the radar until we really like sit down and focus on, hey, what's going on up there? Like, hey, I just realized I was thinking this, and I think that a lot. Why do I think that all the time? That's a terrible thing to think. We're having those types of things come into the forefront of our consciousness because, I'm sure you know, if you want to manifest, there's two components to manifestation. There's your thoughts and there's your emotions, right? Thoughts are electric and emotions are magnetic. And together, when you harmonize those things, you have electromagnetism, and that is what you create in your reality. That is how you create. Okay. So, through the new moon, which is highlighting our emotions, and then through these Pluto and Mars configurations, we're having the thoughts and the electrical side of things come in. We are given an opportunity to really revisit and recalibrate. What am I thinking? And what have I been stuck in for so long, not even really questioning it because I've just been doing it for so long? And how can I reshape this? And how can I rework this in a way that aligns with this new higher consciousness that I am embodying now, this new energetic signature that I want to consistently be resonating at, right? And that's where we get this opportunity to really change our energetic frequency, adopt new practices that are changing our thought patterns, that are cleansing our energy bodies, that are doing whatever it is we need to do via self care, via setting boundaries, via shifting the way we think, via tweaking whatever desires we've been working towards that maybe aren't actually in alignment anymore, uh, changing our self perceptions and what we are capable of. All these things are coming up right now to be reworked, and it's an opportunity to move out with anything that's toxic, anything that brings us down, anything that doesn't support our full ascension into empowerment and the highest expression of who we are. And then we have the opportunity to consciously cultivate higher frequency and to shift into love. That's ultimately what it all comes down to, folks. Especially with Mary Magdalena in the mix. We're talking about deep inner peace that comes from unconditional love and Christ consciousness. So, all the things that happen to us through our human experience that leave us feeling broken and battered and victimized and, you know, powerless, and all the different things that show up for us that stress us out and bring our frequency down, we're getting an opportunity to shift our consciousness, our awareness around those things, and to look at those things through the eyes of the Christ consciousness, which is to look at everything with unconditional love and to take responsibility for everything that we're manifesting in our reality, because at the end of the day, everything that manifests in your reality in one way, shape, or form was something that you chose. Whether that was just living out your patterns and what's on the inside is manifesting outside, or whether it was something kind of like pre-incarnation ordained by your soul. Like, hey, you got to experience this. Maybe it's going to help you balance some karma. Maybe it's going to help you clear some ancestral patterns. Maybe it's just a lesson that you really need to learn. Either way, everything that we are experiencing in one way, shape, or form at some level of existence, it was something that we chose to experience. And so as we come to that realization within ourselves, we are able to shift our vibration into unconditional love because we are all experiencing the same thing, right? We are all one. We are all expressions, individuated expressions of the same thing. And though our individual experiences may differ in the details, we are all breathing, we all have hearts, we are all loving at our core. And so this new moon is going to give us an opportunity to shift our consciousness to that level of thinking, of perceiving. And from that level, we get all the other good stuff that we want. We get abundance and we get inner peace and we get harmonious relationships and we live a life that is fulfilling and in service, and we get to experience satisfaction and fulfillment. But it all starts with love. So, how are we doing, folks? This went pretty deep. I kind of went off on a tangent. I know it was a lot. Thank you so much for hanging with me and for listening. It's definitely a deeper message than I've been, getting into lately, especially with these moon forecasts and that type of thing. I hope that it gave you some food for thought. I hope it resonated with you. And again, there are a lot of really intense energies going on right now. There's more stuff happening as we get into Lionsgate. We've got Mercury retrograde coming up. We've got Uranus changing signs soon. There's still a lot to come. This is the year of the wood snake. It is intense. So, if you want to explore your own chart, if you want to see what's coming up for you personally, and to step into your own sense of empowerment that comes through conscious awareness of how these alignments are impacting you on an individual level, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And I would be happy to read your chart and to go through those things with you. And once again, I'm running a special through the end of June. If you use the code June25, you get 25% off a reading with me. I will post the link to where you can schedule that in the description below. And otherwise, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting me and my work and giving me the opportunity to be of service and to share what I am passionate about and to spread the love. I'm grateful for you all, and I love you all, and I hope you are all well. And I will catch you all later. Thank you so much. Happy new moon, guys. Bye.